All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. So, after the latest fourth quarter meltdown yesterday by the New York football Giants, the team's co owner, John Mara, was left with no choice but to fire head coach Brian Daboll. Now, in 3+ years as the head coach of the Giants, Dayball was just 20, 40, and 1, with 9 of those victories coming in his first year. Now, in 2022, Dayball looked like he was going to be the next big thing in New York as he led the Giants to the postseason for the first time since 2016 and their first playoff win since Super Bowl 46. But that nostalgia faded away rather quickly as the losing that has plagued the Giants now for nearly 15 years continues. But as Mara just gave Brian Daboll his walking papers, he should not have been the only person today, honestly, that the Giants gave a pink slip to. Because my one of my biggest questions is why is defensive coordinator Shane Bowen continuing to call plays for this Giants defense? The Giants are 30th in the NFL in yards allowed this season, while they are dead last against the run. And as Dayball and general manager Joe Schoen came to the Giants as basically a package deal from the Buffalo Bills, why does Shane get to hang around as well? Now, reports that people within, or some people at least within the Giants organization, still like Shane. But what about some of his first round picks like Kayvon Thibodeau, Evan Neal, and Deontay Banks, who he really hasn't hit on? Okay. Overall, since Joe Shane has been calling the shots for the Giants, how many impact players has he drafted? Now, I totally agree, okay, that Dayball needed to go. As honestly, John Mara really should have trusted his instincts and not allowed himself to have been talked out of firing Dayball following the meltdown against the Denver Broncos last month. But if I am the Giants, okay, and if I am truly cleaning house, that means you have to get rid of Joe Shane as well. Shane should not be allowed to pick the next head coach of the Giants because Dayball's head coaching record is also his as well. Let's not forget, okay, this is the same Joe Shane that allowed running back Saquon Barkley to run out of the door, or walk out of the door, should I say, following the 2023 season because he didn't want to pay him. And it didn't take that much money, okay, for the Philadelphia Eagles to get Saquon to come down I-95 for a couple of minutes to join them. And now he gets the privilege, if you will, of tormenting the Giants twice a year as a member of the Eagles. On top of that, this is the same Joe Shane who did not retain safety Xavier McKinney, who went on to lead the NFL in interceptions last year with the Green Bay Packers. These are just some examples, okay, as to why the Giants continue to be a joke. Because if you're going to tear it down, do it right and tear it down completely. You can't talk about, I need a clean and a thorough house cleaning, and you're just going to sit up here and clean the kitchen and clean the bathroom when the living room is filthy, the bedroom is filthy, so many other aspects of the trash needs to be taken out, you name it. If you are going to clean house, you have to clean house. And honestly, the Giants need a fresh start, not with Joe Shane calling the shots for 2026. I'll tell you like this. If John Mara sits back and allows Joe Shane to hire the Giants' next head coach and oversee another draft for this organization, I guarantee you that the planes that we have seen flying over MetLife Stadium for the last couple of years, telling John Mara to fix this mess, are going to continue to fly around. You got to go old school here, folks. Go back to 1978. Okay, that was when the Giants hit rock bottom at that point. And it took John Mara's father, Wellington, to reach out to the NFL for help to get things turned around for his beleaguered franchise, and that led to George Young leaving the league offices on Park Avenue to come over to New Jersey and save this organization from itself. Now, I don't know if it's going to get to that point for the New York Giants, but nonetheless, Joe Schoen is not going to be the guy who turns things around for this organization. And at this point, somebody needs to save the Giants from the Maras. Now, is there any hope for the Giants? I mean, it's one of those where for me, again, if you're going to sit back and say, okay, we're moving on from Brian Daboll, but we're also moving on from Joe Schoen, I'm totally on board with that. I'm more optimistic. But you hear reports that John Mara wants an established head coach because you look at it, the last head coach that they had who had previous head coaching experience was Pat Shermer. But since the Giants moved on from Tom Coughlin back in 2015, Ben McAdoo, okay, no previous head coaching experience. Joe Judge, no previous head coaching experience. And the same for Brian Daboll. And guess what? Hasn't worked out for any of them. So the Giants need themselves an established head coach. But if you bring in an established head coach, somebody with some cachet, um, are they going to want to sit up there and answer to Joe Schoen? That is the $1 million question, which is why I think the Giants should have made the decision to start fresh. So I think keeping Schoen is going to limit that. Now, I will say this: if you're the Giants, you have yourselves a young quarterback in Jackson Dart. There's going to be a lot of head coaches, experienced or inexperienced, that would be lining up to work with that young man. You have some young pieces there, but like I've continued to say, the Giants as an organization are in need of a reset. And when I say a reset, they are in need of a culture change because you look at it, they simply don't know how to win games. They only know how to lose games. And I think that is evident by some of the games that they blew this year. They had a 3-point lead against the Dallas Cowboys with 30 seconds left, could not seal the deal in week number 2. They were up 14-3 in the second half in week 5 against the New Orleans Saints and would go on to lose 26-14. They had a 19-0 lead in week 7 going into the fourth quarter against the Denver Broncos. And then, of course, yesterday being up 20-10 with a couple of minutes left against the Chicago Bears, and they lost. The bottom line is we continue to see this from the Giants, and it's not just a Brian Daboll thing. It's an organization thing because over the years, they consistently find ways to lose games. So again, this is an organization that is definitely in need of a culture change. And like I've continued to say, they need to start getting guys into the locker room that hate to lose more than they enjoy winning. They don't have that right now. And the biggest thing from the Giants that I do not see is accountability and leadership. You look at this roster from 1 to 53. How many leaders do you see on this team? And I'll let you think about it, and I'll just leave it right there. Like I said, the Giants, I'm really curious to see if they're going to go for an established head coach. They really need that. But again, this organization right now is simply a rudderless ship. Since 2017, they went 3-13 that year, 5-11 in 2018, 4-12 2019, 6-10 in 2020, 4-13 in 2021. Their only winning season was when they went 9-7-1 in 2022. And now the quarterback that they said could not get it done, okay, is now getting it done as the starting quarterback for the Indianapolis Colts. From there in 2023, 6-11, 3-14 last year, and the Giants are steamrolling, okay, towards another double-digit loss season. So now the keys to the franchise, at least for the remainder of the season, have been turned over to offensive coordinator slash assistant coach Mike Kafka. This is going to be his opportunity to audition for the job. If you remember last year, Kafka did get some interviews around the league to potentially be a head coach, but it didn't work out that way. So this is going to be his opportunity, and let's see if the team rallies around him. I'll tell you like this: the Giants got the Packers at home Sunday. I think they will play a spirited brand of football, not a guarantee that they are going to win because, again, it's hard to win in the NFL if you cannot stop anybody from running the football. You go back a couple of weeks to that loss against the Eagles. Saquon Barkley had not had 100 yards on the ground all season long until that game. You go back to last Sunday's loss against the San Francisco 49ers. Christian McCaffrey's 100-yard games were few and far between until he met the Giants. So again, you cannot stop anybody running the football. And I think playing defense and stopping people from running the football begins with attitude. Okay. And they don't have that attitude. They don't have that nastiness aspect. I'll tell you like this, though. The Giants fan base was out for blood because just like it was a couple of weeks ago when after their third loss of the season began the year against Kansas City, they had another home game the following week against the Chargers. And I said, Brian Daboll could not afford to have Russell Wilson go back out there as a starting quarterback, which is why he benched him in favor of Jackson Dart. He couldn't do it at home. After yesterday's loss, there was no way in the world that John Mara could afford, okay, to have Brian Daboll be the head coach of this team for another week, especially since the Giants are hosting the Packers this Sunday. Brian Daboll needed to go, yes, but I think at the end of the day, he became the sacrificial lamb for this team. It's one of those, you look at Brian Daboll, he was coaching for his job this year. He was desperate in doing it. You saw the affinity that he had with Jackson Dart, but at the same time, some of his play calling for the young quarterback was a bit reckless. Too many runs. We saw Dart take too many, ill-advised hits. Whoever comes in and is going to work with this young man is going to have to teach him to get out of the pocket, get rid of the football, and of course, if he's running with the football, slide feet first, not head first. It's so these are things that have to change. A part of the things that are definitely going to have to change going forward. But nonetheless, this was a move that needed to be made. Okay, the Giants have talent there, but they need somebody to harness it. And like I've said before, this is a franchise that is in need of a culture change. However, I think their ability to change that culture with their next head coach, their next head coaching hire, is going to be limited if you decide to retain Joe Schoen as your head coach. Switching to the other side of MetLife Stadium, you look at last year with the Jets. The decision was made early on in the season for them to fire Robert Zoller as their head coach, and of course, not too long after that, a couple of games after that, the general manager was also let go as well. Maybe the Giants can have a scenario like that this year as well, because there's no way in the world that you're going to sit up there and fire Brian Daboll, but then bring Joe Schoen back for next year and think everything is going to be hunky dory, everything is going to turn around. If you're the Giants, A, you have to change your culture. B, you have to find a way to somewhat close the gap in your division. The Philadelphia Eagles are light years ahead of the Giants right now as an organization, the way that they're run, the way that they are structured from top to bottom. The Giants have to find a way to close the gap on the Dallas Cowboys and the Washington Commanders. And for every piece of guff that I might give the Dallas Cowboys for the way that Jerry Jones is running that team, as far as them not being a championship team, they still do a better job of drafting and developing their talent than the Giants. That's something that the Giants have to work on. For the Washington Commanders, things have changed. I know that Jaden Daniels is injured right now, but nonetheless, things are still trending upward for that franchise. You have your franchise quarterback going forward if you're the Giants and Jackson Dart. But at the end of the day, it comes down to the talent around him. Malik Neighbors is hurt. That really, to me, hindered and has hindered Jackson Dart this season. And of course, the air went out of that team when Cam Scatterboo was lost for the season with that horrific ankle injury. Okay, but nonetheless, I think this is just the tip of the iceberg. There needs to be wholesale changes for the Giants. Brian Daboll is gone. Joe Schoen should definitely join him, and the same thing can be said about defensive coordinator Shane Bowen. More changes need to come for the Giants. Will they happen for their fans' sake? I hope so. But nonetheless, honestly, for the league's sake, I hope so because the NFL continues to hemorrhage cash, but it's a little bit of a better place when some of your marquee franchises in the big markets, a la New York, are competitive and are relevant. And it's been far too long for Big Blue to not be relevant. I mean, it's one of those where you only basically give the fan base something to be optimistic about the first couple of weeks of the season if you're the Giants recently, or if you trot some of your legends like a Lawrence Taylor or Carl Banks or Phil Simms or Eli Manning out there. There's only so much that you can continuously rely on those guys to give the fan base hope. The guys that are currently putting on the shoulder pads and the helmets, those are the guys who need to give the fan base something to be optimistic about, and it's not happening right now. So, like I said, this just needs to be the tip of the iceberg. If I were the Giants, I would not have stopped here. Joe Schoen would have been cleaning out his locker today, or his office today, rather, and the same could go for Shane Bowen. But nonetheless, I expect a more spirited effort from the Giants this Sunday. I'm not sure if it's going to lead to a victory, but nonetheless, like I said before, Brian Daboll was a sacrificial lamb. Will things change for the Giants? I'm not optimistic, like I said, not to trying to sound like a broken record, but if you're going to keep the GM, it's not a lot to get behind. But nonetheless, at the end of the day, Brian Daboll had to go. The move was made, and let's see what's next for Big Blue. But folks, that is going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank each and every one of you for checking out the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. And as always, if you like what you heard and saw in this podcast, you know what to do. Just hit that like button as well as subscribing to this channel. And like I always say, it's greatly appreciated. Also, if you are on the X, formerly known as Twitter, you can check me out anytime at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you give me that follow, I will do the same in return. And that also goes for Instagram, and you can check me out at 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge. Also, if you're on Facebook, definitely check out the Sports Depot 365. And as far as I'm concerned, one of the better sports groups going on social media. But until next time, fine folks, my name is William Martin, and I'm signing off, and I'm saying thanks once again for checking out the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. Be well, everybody.